The grisly killings of Christine Lundy and her 7-year-old daughter Amber in their own home in the year 2000 is still a case that most New Zealanders find shocking. It's a case that a lot of people here in New Zealand have an opinion on. It's been 24 years since these two were killed, and there have been hearings and facts and various trials, appeals and other court settings going on. As a nation, we haven't been able to let this case go, and that's mainly because the person who was found guilty was Christine's own husband and the father of their only child, Amber. But after 24 years, he still maintains that he is innocent. Hello and welcome back to Crime, Mystery and Mayhem with Kate. If this is your first visit to my channel, hello, welcome. It is great to have you here. Here on my channel, I talk about true crime stories because I find them interesting and I'm intrigued by why some people do the horrific things they do. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel because it would really help me in my attempts to grow my channel. This is still a reasonably new channel. Yes, I have a bunch of videos, but I haven't actually been doing this for too long. So with you guys' support, I know that I can get monetized and yeah, it'll be great. Great. So I need your guys' support. Awesome. Anyway, so today I'm going to be talking about a New Zealand case. I'm from New Zealand. You are probably aware that I am a New Zealander. Maybe the accent gives it away. And this crime that I'm talking about today actually happened when I was 12 years old. And I still remember hearing about it on the news vividly. So let's jump into this one. Since Christine and Amber were killed, this case has been one that has caught the nation's attention. We were all so shocked when the news reports hit our newspapers and our screens. It was a case where most people believed that Mark, Christine's husband, killed his family, but others, they didn't quite believe it. So let's dive in. So Mark and Christine Lundy, they met at a Scouts and Guides gang show when Christine was still in her teen years. Mark was 3 years older than her and they got married in 1983. They had one child, Amber, and she was born 10 years after they got married. So the couple were part of a group that held wine tastings in each other's homes and they had a wide circle of friends, super social. Christine Marie Lundy was 38 years old when she died. She was a devoted mum who was involved in many community activities such as Girl Guides, and she was well known within her community. Amber Grace Lundy, she was only 7 years old at the time of her death, and they say that she was an outgoing and bright child. She was strong-willed, she was a natural leader, and she was a delight to be around. Now we're going to jump in properly. There is a disclaimer. I will be talking about the death of a child. So if you can't handle that, please leave now, come back later. So on Tuesday, the 29th of August in the year 2000, Christine and Amber were walking home after she finished school. Neither they nor those that saw them walking home had any idea of the horror that would meet them before the night ended. By 9:30 a.m. the next morning, several people became concerned. So people were ringing the house, she wasn't picking up, that no one was getting a response. One of the worried people was Christine Lundy's own brother, James. So he called the house, but he wasn't getting any response. So he decided to go over. And after knocking and still not getting a response, he decided to break into the house. You're probably thinking maybe she went out. Why are people so concerned? She's an adult. But this was out of character for Christine to not be heard from all night and morning. And when her brother got into the house, he yelled out, "Hello, anyone here?" So he starts walking up the hallway. And this is where he saw little 7-year-old Amber, his niece, laying on the floor in her mother's room covered in blood. James was freaking out. How could this happen? How did this happen? Where's my sister? James immediately called 111. That's our emergency services number here in New Zealand. He went over to Amber. He was checking to see if there was any chance that she was still alive. And only when he checked Amber's pulse did he notice his sister laying face up and nude on her bed and saturated in her own blood. It was a bloodbath. There was blood everywhere. Seeing his niece and sister like this would have been horrific. Amber and Christine had been beaten to death in the most horrific of ways. They had terrible facial and head injuries, and there was blood everywhere. The blood had been splattered up the walls and was all over the floor. This poor man had walked into a horror scene. No doubt in shock and grief, he staggered outside and waited for help to arrive. Before long, a double homicide case was launched, and this involved 33 policemen. Mark, Christine's husband, was apparently away on business that fateful night, and he had actually called his brother-in-law because he couldn't get hold of his wife, so he was concerned, and he rang his brother-in-law on the phone and he asked James if he could go over and maybe check on his family. So that's why James was at the house. Mark and Christine Lundy had been married for 17 years, and Amber was their only child. It's said that Mark was a good father. He was caring, loving. Christine was a devoted mum. They seemed to have a good relationship. It was said that their sex life was nil. There was nothing happening, and yeah, but that happens sometimes after 17 years. So they jointly owned a kitchen sink business, but the company, it was often in debt. So they owed their supplier around $100,000. In 1999, Mark added to their debt. He bought 2 plots of land to grow grapes in Hawke's Bay, but it was said that the sale went unconditional in early 2000, and Mark had missed a number of settlement dates. So he didn't pay, which led to penalty interest of 14%. So at the time of the killings, the Lundys owed $140,000 in penalty interest, and the final deadline was August 30th, 2000, the day that his wife and daughter were found deceased. I know, it looks really, really bad for Mark. It was also said that a few months earlier, an insurance salesman reviewed the couple's life insurance, and the Lundys had agreed on an increase. So they increased their life insurance policies from $200,000 to $500,000. Both Mark and Christine signed the new agreement on the 25th of August, 5 days before Christine and Amber were killed. Once again, not looking very good for Mark. But, excuse me, could a father really kill his child in this kind of way? I mean, the killing was brutal. The answer to that is, it's possible. Parents kill their kids all the time, right? We hear about it. It's horrible, but it happens. We read about parents killing their children all the time in the media. I've talked about cases where parents have killed their child. It's a sick thing to try to comprehend, but it's definitely possible. Also, the Lundys were told that the new life insurance amount wouldn't actually apply until the policy document was issued. Christine Lundy was killed before the process was finalized. So if he did kill her, he wouldn't get the $500,000, he would get $200,000, right? Still a pretty good amount of money in my opinion. Okay, so that aside, for the moment, it is not looking good for Mark, just straight off the get-go. Let's backtrack. I'm going to backtrack slightly. So on the morning of Tuesday, the 29th of August, Mark left his house in Palmerston North and he drove to Wellington on one of his regular business trips. He checked into a motel in Petone, that's in Wellington, at about 5 p.m. and his wife and daughter called him on his cell phone. Apparently his daughter wanted to know if they could have McDonald's for dinner. So they called at about 5:30 and they spoke for 8 minutes. This call was seen when police looked into his phone call history. So Mark would tell the police that during this call his wife had told him, yeah, we're going to go get McDonald's for dinner. And this was confirmed when police later found a McDonald's receipt in their home for food that was bought that evening at 5:45. So they were, heading off to get some McDonald's for dinner. Yum. Then Christine took a call at home from a friend just before 7 p.m. that night. Yeah. So the level of violence that was rained down on both Christine and Amber Lundy, it's so difficult to comprehend. The murder weapon is believed to have been a tomahawk, which is a sharp-bladed axe resembling a hatchet. But the thing is, the weapon, it has never been found. Even 24 years later, this weapon has never been found. Christine, like we know, she was found naked on her bed, and Amber was next to the bed on the floor. It was a truly gruesome crime scene, with both victims suffering multiple blows to their heads, causing blood splatter and brain matter to be clearly visible meters from their bodies. To attack with such force, repeating blow after blow, has all the hallmarks of an enraged killer. Who would be this angry to kill a child that way? A 7-year-old. Okay, so when Mark was told about what had happened to his family, he left Wellington, and by the time that he returned to his house, the police had cordoned it off. The bodies of his wife and his child, they were still inside. Then, on the 7th of September in the year 2000, following the release of their bodies from the autopsy, a funeral was held at St. Peter's Church, and the nation watched in sympathy as televised footage of the funeral showed Mark Lundy collapsing from grief during his departure from the church. So this picture, it was the main picture that was used for people who are talking about this case. Some people say that he was putting on an act, but I don't know. I'm staying Switzerland on this one. So just under 6 months later, Mark was arrested and he was charged under suspicion of the killings of his wife and his child. By April 2002, this man was found guilty of the double murder of Christine and Amber Lundy. But how could he do it if he was in Wellington? That's like a 3-hour drive from his house. And there was evidence that Mark was away on business that day. He booked into his motel on the Petone foreshore, and he even spoke to his daughter and wife on the phone at 5:30 p.m. that evening. Cell phone data proved that he was in Petone at 5:30 p.m. and at 8:28 p.m. that night. He was also confirmed as being in his motel in Petone between 11:30 p.m. and 1 a.m. by a sex worker. Yeah, that's right. Apparently, he was cheating on his wife with sex workers. He would get like massages and have sex with them and stuff like that. They weren't having a sex life. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, that's all right, go do that because you're not having a sex life. You're still cheating. But yeah, so this is what happened. He had a sex worker in his hotel room, and yeah. So where would he find the time to drive all the way back home to kill his family? Unless the sex worker was lying. Maybe he somehow got her to fake an alibi. Possible, I guess. So at his first trial, the prosecution claimed that Mark Lundy left Petone immediately after his phone call with his wife and child at 5:30 p.m. and apparently he drove all the way to Palmerston North, killed his wife and daughter at about 7 p.m, disposed of his bloody clothes and the weapon, altered the timing on the family computer to suggest that they were still alive at 7 p.m, was seen apparently running down the street wearing a blonde wig and then drove back to Petone to be there by 8:28. Does that seem possible? To anyone who lives in New Zealand, most of us know the distance between Palmy, which is Palmerston North, to Wellington. I honestly don't think that's possible this time frame. Not in this time frame that they're suggesting. I've driven to Wellington myself from Palmy, aka Palmerston North, and I don't think that's possible unless he was really speeding. And also at the time, 5:30, it's peak hour traffic. It's a weekday. It's a work day. People are going home. Peak hour traffic in Wellington is horrible. Same as Auckland. I'm from Auckland, so yeah, it's shit here as well. So he would have to have been driving super fast, or they've got the timing wrong. So Mark Lundy's defence, they maintained that travelling to Palmerston North and back in only 3 hours was virtually impossible. The prosecution said that he drove at breakneck speed from Wellington to Palmerston North, killed his family and drove back to Wellington within 3 hours. They said that he killed his wife for her life insurance money because of financial pressure, and that he killed his daughter because she witnessed what he'd done to her mother. So they got a good argument, but I'm feeling like the time frame is off. My biggest issue at the moment is the distance he was said to have driven to get back home to commit this crime, then make it back to Wellington within 3 hours. Like, that's a lot of stuff to do. Drive, murder, get rid of the evidence, and then drive back. Like, that's a lot to do. It wasn't just a shooting. This was a beating. I can't see it being possible. What do you guys think? Are there any Kiwis watching this? Let me know. Then I read that police found a speck of body tissue on one of Mark's shirts that was in the back of his car. So apparently this tissue was meant to be brain tissue. But the thing is, New Zealand pathologists, they couldn't identify that it was brain tissue. Then a pathologist from Texas claimed that he did identify it as brain tissue. So I don't know. We'll look more into that soon. So if this brain tissue was found on his shirt in his car, then he must have done it, right? Because he didn't go inside the house. The police stopped him, and they're saying that it was found in his car already. So the prosecution argued the only way that this tissue could have got on his shirt was if Mark himself was the killer. But then later, there were reports and tests done by other experts, and this casts some doubt on the identification of the material as brain tissue. So then the pathologist in Texas dropped a bombshell and actually admitted that his lab was not accredited to do forensic work. Yeah, so a little bit of time wasting going on here. Also, no weapon was ever found, as we know, but there was paint found in Amber and Christine's hair that matched the paint that Mark used to mark his tools in the tool shed. At this point, I'm feeling like it's possible that Mark did it, but also I'm still stuck on the distance that he would have had to travel. So, it's not looking great for him, but also there's... So at trial, the prosecution called more than 130 people to testify, and the only person who actually claimed to have seen him in Palmerston North at the time of the crime was a woman called Margaret Dance. So this was a 60-year-old woman who said that she had psychic powers and a photographic memory. Oh my god, I have so many opinions on that, but I will keep them to myself for now. This woman lived about 500 meters from the Lundy house and said that she saw a man wearing a blonde wig who appeared to be trying to look like a woman running on the street at about 7:15 p.m. She also said that she saw 7 other people that were outside a takeaway shop in the area. So surely they would have seen this person as well, right? This man dressed in a blonde wig. But the thing is, nobody else saw this. No one saw anyone running in the area that night, let alone a man dressed in a blonde wig trying to make himself look like a woman. Also, Mark, he was a big guy back then. Like, he would have stood out. He would have stood out I'm sure. Someone would have seen something. I could be wrong, but my opinion on this one, remember we are allowed our own opinions, is that she may have made it up to maybe insert herself into this case for maybe attention. People do that. We see it all the time. People, inserting themselves into crimes so that, they get the attention, 10 minutes of glory. It's annoying, but it does happen. Okay, back to the trial. The defense called 3 witnesses, including Mark Lundy himself, who empathetically denied killing his wife and his child. So a key defense argument was that he couldn't possibly have made this round trip from Wellington to Palmy and back in 3 hours, pointing out that his phone records proved that his phone was in Petone at 5:38 p.m. and 8:29 p.m. So like I said before. And in regards to the brain tissue evidence, the defense noted that there was blood and tissue splattered everywhere, including the walls, the bed, and the floor around the bodies, but his car, his glasses, his wedding ring, shoes, and other clothes, they were all tested for blood or other tissue, and absolutely nothing came back. So sometimes, if you get blood underneath your wedding ring, maybe you took it off. It's possible. Maybe he's really good at cleaning. So the defense said contamination could account for this supposed brain tissue that was found on his shirt. They reckon that when he hit her, the brain tissue fell into his pocket. But I don't know. So the jury then went away and they deliberated for 7 hours. Not long, right, for such a big case. When they came back, they told the court that they find Mark Lundy guilty of the murder of his wife and his 7-year-old daughter. And he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. So Mark's own brother Craig, he publicly said that he did believe that his brother was guilty, while Mark's sister and brother-in-law believed that he was innocent. So I'm still torn. I'm torn at this point. So again, Mark would have only had 3 hours to make the return journey from Petone to Palmerston North. I just don't think it's possible. So this is a round trip of approximately 290 kilometers. It's a big hike. How could he drive the distance, kill his wife and daughter, change his clothes, dispose of evidence, da-da-da-da-da? I'm just struggling to figure that one out in their time frame. So in order to make it back to Petone by 8:28 p.m, Mark would have had to drive to Palmy in rush hour traffic at an average speed of around 117 kilometers an hour, commit the crimes, and make the return journey back to Petone at an average speed of 120 kilometers an hour. Yeah. So traffic leaving Petone would have been heavy. It was a weekday, like I said. Everyone would be heading home from work. It would be gridlock. You can't drive at over 100 kilometers in gridlock. I don't believe this particular time frame would be possible. But I do believe that Mark could have possibly made the trip and committed the crimes later that night, returning to Petone in the early hours of the morning. That's highly possible in my opinion. Okay, so let's jump forward. We're going to jump forward to 2012. In November of 2012, Mark Lundy applied to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council seeking permission to appeal his convictions, and the hearing before the Privy Council began on the 17th of June 2013. So this appeal was based on 3 main issues. So these issues were the time of death, the time of shutdown of Christine's computer, and the claim that brain tissue was found on Mark's shirt. So affidavits sworn by 3 experts all concluded the tissue was poorly preserved, and they concluded the IHC procedure was an uncontrolled experiment incapable of producing a reliable outcome. Basically, they can't test this tissue to know for certain if it is brain tissue. So then on the 4th of October in 2013, the Privy Council quashed his convictions and agreed that Mark would need a second trial. So after the council's decision, Mark was actually released on bail, and he was in our community for 18 months before his second trial. In 2015, Mark Lundy was back in court and he was tried a second time. So this time the Crown made significant changes to the prosecution case against him following the ruling of the Privy Council, and they no longer claimed that Mark Lundy made a basically 300-kilometre round trip from Petone to Palmerston North in less than 3 hours to commit these crimes. Instead, they argued that he drove up to Palmerston North in the middle of the night after he had been with that prostitute, so maybe he left at 1 a.m. Now that seems more possible, in my opinion. It's like he was with the prostitute, finished up with her at 1 a.m, possibly drove home. I don't know why they tried to argue the original time frame, because they're lawyers and stuff. Like, do you think they'll be smarter than that? Anyway, the Crown no longer relied on the testimony of their only witness. Remember that self-proclaimed psychic? She wasn't asked to testify at the second trial. People just, they just didn't find her credible because, yeah. Yeah. The new jury also heard about scientific tests which were conducted on tissue found on one of Mark's shirts. So this time the Crown claimed the stains were brain or spinal cord matter from Christine, while the defense argued they could have been stains from, say, a meat pie that Mark ate. So tests were done and they were developed specifically for the Lundy case by a lab in the Netherlands, in Holland. So the lab compared the tissue on the shirt with brain tissue from animals, which included chickens and a cat. Long story short, the prosecution claimed the tests proved the tissue was human. I can't understand that, but anyway, I'm still not sold at this point. I also read that as of 2017, this particular process has not been used again. There has to be a reason for that, right? So Mark Lundy's lawyer said that this was a flawed science, and the testing done in the Netherlands was subsequently ruled inadmissible at the Court of Appeal in 2018. But the thing is, the jury had already heard it, and on the 1st of April, they found Mark guilty a second time. So then in October of 2017, Mark appealed his second conviction at the Court of Appeal in Wellington. But the court, they dismissed his appeal in October of 2018, and it ruled that the Crown evidence about the alleged presence of brain tissue on Mark's shirt in the retrial was inadmissible, but they decided that the appeal should be dismissed on the basis that no substantial miscarriage of justice had actually occurred. What are your guys' thoughts at this point? What are your guys' thoughts? What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think he did it? It's possible. It's also possible he didn't. So in August of 2022, just a couple of years ago, Mark attended his first parole board hearing. So he had served a minimum term of 20 years. But the thing was, he was denied release because the board was concerned that he didn't have a safety plan to address triggers which might lead to further offending. So Mark said that he was unable to create a plan because he was innocent and he had never been triggered to kill before. So yeah, he said that it's rather difficult to do a safety plan for something that he hadn't done. So the board, they also expressed concerns about his drinking patterns prior to his family's deaths. Apparently he drank quite a lot, and his wife, she didn't really like his drinking. It was quite heavy, he said, because that time his friends, they all drank. He said, I wasn't the heaviest drinker, but I wasn't the lightest drinker. So in New Zealand we have quite a lot of people drink here. So then in May of 2023, Mark had his second parole board hearing, and he was questioned about his motivation for killing his family. Mark told the board that this was a difficult question for him to answer because he didn't have a motive for something that he did not do. Also, since the previous hearing, he had attended treatment for his drinking, which was, a problem 20 years earlier. Again, parole was declined because he didn't have a safety plan. So there is this guy called Jeff Levick, and he runs a campaign to have Mark Lundy's convictions overturned. He believes that Mark is innocent. This is mainly because of the time needed to travel from Petone to his house and return again. He thinks that it is possible that a creditor of Mark's paid someone to go to Mark's house to maybe teach him a lesson for not paying his bills. But when this person arrived, apparently, Mark wasn't home and matters got out of hand. Jeff also thinks that an associate of Mark's was threatened by someone over outstanding debts on the day that Amber and Christine were killed. It was said that the associate called the police and then rang both Christine and Mark Lundy to warn them. So there's that. Police, they were actually aware of these events and subsequently offered this man immunity if he admitted his involvement in the killings. So he denied having anything to do with it, and he was never charged. So it was kind of left there. They did question him in, a little bit of depth, but they did have their minds set on Mark. Can anyone smell something fishy here? I'm having trouble really believing that Mark is the one who did it, but I also feel like he could have done it. I'm very, very torn. Also at the retrial, the defense counsel suggested that Christine's brother Glenn had actually been molesting little Amber and accused him of being the one who killed Amber and Christine. Once again, we do not know if this is true. We do not know. He said that when police examined his car, there was blood found inside the boot. There was also said to be blood found near the driver's seat and on a towel in Glenn's trunk. Also, it says that there were traces of blood found in his bathroom and on a pair of his underwear and a handkerchief in his house. And they're saying that it was 83% match to Christine's DNA and an 88% match to Amber's. Like, what the actual F? So the defense counsel asked questions about DNA found in Christine and Amber's fingernail scrapings, which came from two different men. This testing was done shortly before the retrial, but it was not available at the original trial, and who the DNA came from has never been established. So at this point I'm thinking, why is Mark in prison? Why aren't they looking into this case more, really digging into this case to make sure they definitely have the right guy? Christine also had 21 strands of hair tangled in her hands, which did not match her husband's hair. Is there a cover-up here? Or did Mark actually kill his wife and child? I honestly do not know. Before I really researched this case, really looked into it, read so many articles, I believed that Mark Lundy killed his family, like a lot of people in New Zealand. But now, I'm not so sure. It was said that at Christine and Amber's funeral, Mark appeared so distressed that he had to be supported by a couple of his friends, and his grief was filmed and shown repeatedly on television. I remember that. It's a picture that I have in my head because it was shown so much. It was in the newspapers, it was on TV. I remember seeing it a lot. It had been said that many who viewed this footage and saw the pictures who didn't know him thought that he was putting on an act. That's what I thought as well back then, because everyone was saying it and we were believing what we were being told. So many people here in New Zealand, they did actually believe that he was acting, that he was pretending to be so distraught over his family's killings. Mark Lundy's lawyer said that whenever his case was in the news, the funeral footage was the main picture or video that was shown to make it look like Mark was a pathetic comedic figure. It's believed that the image became ingrained in people's minds, which is true, and that the constant replaying of scenes from the funeral affected the jury at both trials and had a serious effect on the outcome. Also, when we all found out that he had been with a sex worker on the evening that his child and his wife were butchered, that kind of made the country hate him even more. And we wanted to believe that he did it. He just seems like the most likely suspect to most of us. It is possible that the police were under so much pressure to catch the killer, especially as it was such a violent crime towards a mother and her 7-year-old daughter. And maybe the police, they just wanted to get, someone put away quickly. And they stuck to this one theory. I do feel like once the police commit to a theory, whether it's conscious or subconscious, deliberate or otherwise, then yeah, there are lines of inquiry that are completely ignored or cast aside as being irrelevant because it doesn't and will not fit their theory. So this case, it is so controversial here in New Zealand, even after 24 years. I cannot walk away from this feeling like I know who did it. For so long, from the moment that I heard about this case when I was 12, I thought it was Mark because everyone was saying it was Mark. So when you're hearing, oh, it's Mark, he did it, you're like, oh yeah, Mark did it. But then I'm reading all this evidence and hearing that there's other people that could have been, and there was evidence. What is Christine and Amber's blood doing at that uncle's place? That doesn't look right. What do you guys think? I don't want to get into any trouble with anyone here in New Zealand because this case has been around for 24 years, most of my life, and I am just torn. I don't know. I was looking at Facebook this morning because I wanted to make sure that I read everything, and I was looking at Facebook, and so 90% of people in the comment section were like, Mark did it, let him rot, using up our taxpayer money. Everyone, well, not everyone, but most people that were commenting were believing that Mark did it. Maybe they do need to read what I've been reading. Maybe, I don't know. It is highly possible that he did do it. He had the motive, right? He was in debt. I don't know, guys. I don't know on this one. I am torn. I was actually thinking about writing him. I know. And I don't know. I'm now invested in this case. I'm so invested in this case. I just want to sit with him and look him across the table and be like, did you do it? And see what, I know he'll be like, no, I didn't, but I want to see if I can see if he's lying. Usually I can pick if someone's lying to me. It's like a gift. Anyway, I do not know for certain if Mark Lundy is guilty. I don't know. I think he is, but then I don't know. It's a hard one. What do you guys think? Let me know. Any Kiwis here? People from New Zealand? What do you guys think? Do you remember this case? It is a tough one. After reading everything, for so long, like I said, I thought it was Mark. But now after reading everything that I've read and talked about it, out loud, not just seeing it on, you know, the news, actually talking about it myself. I want the police to look into it. Detectives, look into it properly. Really look into it. Really look into it. Because if this man is innocent, he's been in jail for 24 years. And the country has hated him. Like, even if he gets out, there will be some people waiting, I'm sure. A lot of Kiwis do not like this man one little bit. So, I don't know. I also read that if he does get out, he wants to go back to his hometown to visit his wife and daughter's graves. So, I don't know, like, will Palmerston North even welcome him back in? Probably not. So, yeah, I don't know where he would go. I'm pretty sure, like with David Bain's story, so David Bain, he was blamed for killing his entire family. Anyway, he's out of jail now, so I'm pretty sure he was acquitted. And he packed up and moved over to Australia. Yeah, so maybe if Mark got out, he should probably do the same, because New Zealand is tiny. We are such a small country, and it's like, yeah, it happened to his family, but here in New Zealand, it's like, they're our family too, if you know what I mean. Like, does that make sense? We're such a small country, like 5 million people in our entire country. So it's like I look at little Amber, little 7-year-old Amber, and I see so much of my own daughter in her. Like, when I'm looking at the pictures of her with her feet up on her mum's shoulders, and the photo of her laying in bed with her dad having, like, looks like breakfast. It's like, she's just got this cute, cheeky look on her face, and she's so cute. It's just so sad that those two went through that. Such a horrific death. That, oh, it's so sad, so sad. What do you guys think? So let me know. Anyway, I am going to leave it there. I'm going to make this very clear. I don't have an opinion on this one. I don't know if Mark Lundy is guilty, and I don't know. It's like, it's a hard one for me. Like, Kiwis probably may come at the comment section like, he did it, blah, 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 blah. That's your opinion. You're allowed to have your opinion. Cool, awesome. I'm just saying I don't know. After reading a whole lot of information, I do not know. Anyway, that's me. I hope everyone has a wonderful morning, day, night, whatever it is where you are. Take care of each other. Be kind. Remember that? Be kind. We have to be kinder. So much anger and bullshit going on in the world. I do not understand why there is so much freaking war. Can't we all just get along? Apparently not. Anyway, that's me. I'm out. Ka kite. Have a fantastic day. Morning, blah, 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 all that. Yep. Cool. All right. Adios, guys. See you later. Bye.